All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Sandeep. I am your host for this event. I'm excited to be here with you today, hosting this truly insightful webinar on a very important cybersecurity topic that is of great interest to all of you. This event is being broadcast on multiple platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So please help us share this event with your peers, friends, and team members, and your network connections who can benefit from hearing this valuable information by either commenting, liking, or sharing the link to the live stream. Our commitment to delivering reliable and proven cybersecurity solutions to our clients has prompted us to partner with Nanitor, a CTEM innovator with a cutting-edge modern threat exposure management platform, and we are glad to present this webinar jointly with them today. It is my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers for today's webinar, Derek Melber from Nanitor and Satya Dillikar from Quadrant. Derek, who's a lead architect at Nanitor, has built a career out of public speaking, content creation, sales, marketing, and enterprise design around a core set of technologies like identity security, Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, Cloud Identity, PAM, group policy, and other integrated technologies. Derek has worked for and with companies leading in these areas such as Microsoft, AWS, Beyond Trust, Quest, and others. Derek consults with high-profile prospects and customers who need to understand how different identity-related technologies work together and how different components contribute to an overarching security solution. And Satya, who's the cybersecurity practice lead at Quadrant Technologies, who has over 2 decades of experience in cloud software and computer networking. Satya is a seasoned practitioner in the realm of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and has been instrumental in developing and deploying cutting-edge products and SaaS solutions at companies such as VMware, Cisco, Ciena, to name a few. Satya's expertise spans across a multitude of public cloud platforms, including AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. He brings his all-around expertise to deliver solutions and services to safeguard organizations and to maintain a secure digital environment in an ever-evolving threat landscape. Both Derek and Satya will present a coherent view of continuous threat exposure management and how it can be implemented at any organization, big or small. They will decrypt why traditional vulnerability management is no longer sufficient and will describe what a solid CTEM solution looks like so leaders like you know exactly what to look for and expect in securing your enterprise. At the end of their presentations, we'll have a short Q&A session. And if you have a question, please type only your question into the chat box. Don't need your name or your firm's name if you don't like to add those, and hit submit so we can display that question on screen and have it answered by one of our speakers. If we cannot answer a question, we can respond to you via email if you provide us with your email address. And you can email us at marcoms@quadranttechnologies.com. That'll be there in the chat in just a second. Without further ado, let's get started. And I invite Derek up on stage to kick things off for us. And over to you, Derek. Derek, you're on mute. Can't hear you just yet.
Okay, excellent. Well, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Sandeep. And I definitely think that today's event is going to be instrumental for everyone. You know, the cybersecurity landscape is changing constantly. And I think one of the things that I want to drive home today is we can't continue to do the same things we have been doing and expecting different results to protect against some of the newer attacks and exploits. So this is really what I want to do is kind of get us thinking about what can we do to really improve our overall security for our organization. And in addition to that, reducing the risk and eliminating some of the avenues that attackers have into our environment. So it certainly is going to be action packed, and I will give you some action items as we go through the presentation. I know Sandeep gave me a great introduction. Thank you for that. The most important thing on this screen then is my email address. Please follow up with any of us here if you have any questions after the fact. You know, certainly as a 19-time MVP in Microsoft, my goal is to help the community as much as possible. So please leverage that whenever you can. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're really going to be focusing on this concept of CTEM, right? Continuous Threat Exposure Management. And Gartner is very clear, right? Gartner has a lot of analysts that look at this information constantly. And Gartner is extremely clear that CTEM is one of the top 10 strategic technologies for 2024. In their list, it's actually number 2. So what is CTEM? Well, CTEM is basically the idea that we're going to build upon vulnerability management and make that one of only a couple of things that we're going to check across all of our assets in the environment, including things that can be patched. So it's not only vulnerabilities, we're going to look at patching, we're going to look at configurations, we're going to look at all of these. And Gartner really feels that this is valuable. And they actually stated that by 2026, organizations prioritizing their security investments based on CTEM are going to have a 2/3 reduction in breaches. That is an astounding statement and some pretty high numbers. I mean, 2/3. I don't know if you looked at the news recently, but certainly there's a lot of companies that are being breached. So it's important to kind of keep this in mind. Now, other people within Gartner are also making waves on some of the things that they're talking about, right? Jeremy was talking about continuous threat exposure management is a pragmatic and effective systematic approach to continuously refine priorities. That right there is probably one of the most important aspects of this statement, right? Then he goes on to say, organizations can't fix everything. You can't. You just can't fix everything. There's too much. The volume is way too high, right? So what has to be clear is what can we fix and what should we fix, right? You have to have a view of what can safely be installed now and what should be postponed. And that's not always clear, right? And that's where CTEM is going to help organizations with this. So we're going to start off with talking about kind of a vulnerability management approach, the traditional vulnerability management that many of you may have right now. But you can't rely on that, right? You cannot rely on just vulnerability management. You have to have a layering of security, really getting to this CTEM approach, which is going to be a platform. So what does the traditional vulnerability management look like in 2023? Well, I went out and I just kind of grabbed a screen capture of a vulnerability management solution. And this is what I saw, right? This is what was posted as kind of a view of what a customer would see. So when you look at this, right, just pick one of these out. What is this? I mean, this really isn't useful. I mean, it's not really giving me much of anything except for telling me it's a 4 out of 5 severity and it's telling me it's with Windows. And even worse, some of these vulnerability management platforms are giving us so much information. What am I going to do with this? Right. And what I'm seeing is that organizations that are really experiencing a voluminous amount of data coming into their solutions and into their SOC, it's too much. They don't even know what to do. They really just don't know what to do. So with so much information and everything being claimed as critical in the prioritization view, organizations just don't know what to do, right? And really what's happening here is with an inefficient VM analysis, no action is being occurred. I still see organizations that have vulnerabilities that haven't been patched since 2007. That's literally 16 years ago. No wonder the attackers are getting in. So what we need to do is kind of shift our mindset. We have to think a little bit differently about this. And why is this the case? Well, Jen Easterly, the director of U.S. Cybersecurity, a security agency, said, while some of the adversaries use advanced tools, most take advantage of unpatched vulnerabilities and poor security hygiene. That's kind of a pretty sad statement, right? When things that we can secure aren't being secured, are being exploited, it kind of begs the point of saying, well, we kind of deserve it because we can fix this. But security is more than vulnerability management. And I think that also is going to help us because if we can now see more security and know exactly what we should be fixing, it's going to increase our security, reduce our attack surface, and reduce the risk of us actually being breached, right? Now, let's look at some numbers. Let's look at some details. This is from the Verizon report, right? I'm sure many of us have seen this report. So I pulled some information out of this. So this isn't me talking. These are researchers and analysts talking about what they're seeing. And I think the Verizon report is pretty clear, right? 74% of all breaches include the human element. Well, why am I pointing to the human element? Well, this is where errors come in. Privileges aren't being protected. Credentials aren't being protected, right? There are three primary ways in which attackers access an organization: stolen credentials, phishing, and exploiting vulnerabilities. Do you see a pattern here? Are you seeing the pattern, right? And then finally, this report says misconfigurations, the much loved action type of the lazy person, I didn't say that, it's in the report, comes in third and accounts for 21% of error related breaches. So, what does this mean? Well, it means that we have to focus on these areas. So, if we summarize, we have to worry about vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, privileged accounts, stolen credentials. This is just the start of what we really need to focus on in order to secure our environments. Well, what do the details look like? Well, when we start looking at exploitation of vulnerabilities, this means vulnerabilities of our operating systems, right? Of course, at the top of the list is Microsoft, because the majority of our devices are running Microsoft Windows, okay? So we have to make sure that we're secured there. Services, right? Again, I'm going to call out one of the top services that's been exploited in the last couple of years: Exchange. It is number one, I think, for last year, 2022. It was the number one exploited service. We have to worry about the vulnerabilities. Applications, right? SolarWinds. We have to make sure that what we have in place is being secured. Different devices, right? Our routers, our switches, our printers are all under attack. They all have vulnerabilities, and we have to make sure that we are verifying that everything that we can patch for vulnerabilities is being patched, including all bits and pieces of software. And the software is expanding, right? Because now we have different software, because we have remote workforce, we have different cloud environments, it has software. Everything is kind of growing, and it's making it more difficult. So it's even more important to make sure that we have solutions in place that are going to help us secure our environments. Now, what about misconfigurations? Now, misconfigurations is a tricky one, in my opinion, because misconfigurations is focusing on the fact that we have to have something configured, and there may be 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 or more options for configuration, but is it really secured, right? You know, I focus a lot in the Windows environment, especially Active Directory. And when you start looking at configurations, let's say around Kerberos delegations, there's 5 different settings. So how do you choose which one? And if you make it more secure, is it going to break something? The same with network devices, right? If I have a Cisco router, if I have a Palo Alto device, how am I going to make sure I choose what setting I'm going to put in place to secure it? I have applications that have now even more options and more settings. Databases have their settings. And then I get to cloud, right? Cloud, I think it's obvious. We've moved to the cloud, but do we fully understand the cloud? No. Do we know what to set in the cloud? No. It's really confusing. So now we have grown into this hybrid environment where we have on-prem, can't get rid of it. We have cloud, we need it, we love it, but we don't know how to secure it. So configurations are going to be misconfigured there all the time, and we're seeing that, right? Well, what about privilege misuse? Well, privilege misuse starts into this realm of identity, right? And the attacker is going to go after the accounts that have privileges. There's just no way. So we have to secure our administrative accounts. We have to secure administrative accounts on devices, right? So if we have a Windows 11 workstation, we have to secure that. If we have a Windows Server 2019 server that's running SQL, we have to secure that. Plus, we have to secure the account in the SQL database. Plus, we have to secure the domain administrator in Active Directory. All of these administrative accounts have to be secured. It's overload. We don't know how to do it. But with a CTEM solution, it's going to tell you exactly what to look for. We have to secure service accounts. Now, I could probably talk about service accounts for just an hour alone on what we need to do. And actually, just the other day, I posted for admins kind of at the holiday season, go and look at service accounts. Make sure that they're secured, right? Now, with identities, we also have to make sure we look at the identity configurations. In Windows, they're called attributes. These attributes typically aren't investigated, but they need to be because these can be exploited. This is where identity security comes in. And then finally, if we go back to that Verizon report, one of the things was stolen credentials. So what do we need to do here? Well, we need to make sure that the local caches are secured. Hopefully, we are reducing the actual number of accounts that are being cached, whether that be through the browser, whether that be through the operating system, through an application, whatever it is. Because if an attacker gets an account on one asset or device, they're going to use that information to move laterally. And then they're going to try to get information from other devices and other assets. They also are going to attack authentications, right? Especially in a Microsoft world, you have pass the hash, pass the ticket, golden ticket attacks. You have so many different ways that authentication protocols can be breached and exploited. So we have to protect against this. So there's a lot here, right? How are we going to get control of this? What do we need to do in order to secure our environments? This is where continuous threat exposure management comes in. And I'm going to throw in the term unified because it's important to understand that each of these different pieces of CTEM often are in different solutions. And if it's unified, it's all under one umbrella. And it is this kind of core set of security that we are going to focus on. Now, with CTEM, you have to start somewhere. So where are you going to start? Well, you have to start at asset inventory, right? You can't secure what you can't see. This is actually one of the main pillars of CTEM from Gartner. Basically saying you have to know what you have on-prem, in the cloud, everywhere. You have to know where those assets are. So now you can go in and you can actually gather that information. And asset security can't be in different products. It just can't be. There's no way to splice information and issues from different products together. They use a totally different risk scoring system. They use a different prioritization. So literally your assets need to be gathered in one place. And that's the place that security also needs to be gathered, analyzed, and presented in comparison with each other. So this asset prioritization is a vital piece of CTEM, and it is missing from most vulnerability management solutions. Your high value assets absolutely must be considered differently than your other assets, right? If I have a domain controller, that has to be considered to be more important than a workstation. If I have an internet facing device compared to a device that's in my DMZ, well, the DMZ is protecting more than that internet facing device. I have to be able to separate out those assets. So inside of your CTEM solution, make sure that you are able to prioritize assets. And there is a standard, which is CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. What it does is allows you to gauge per asset where that asset fits in the overall prioritization. Let me go in and show you exactly what this might look like. So I'm going to go to an asset inventory solution, and you'll see here that it has the ability to set what the integrity is, what the availability is. This is the important part of your asset priority. You also need to support a variety of different types of assets, right? So if I want to look at the overall types of assets that I need to look at, this is kind of a great list. You'll see that it incorporates desktops, laptops, your servers. It's going to incorporate databases, even printers, workstations. And then you get a variety of other environments like network devices and cloud. This is where you now can have a phenomenal asset inventory, and each asset is going to be inventoried for the security as well. So now you're getting information per asset related to security. And which platforms? As many as possible, right? The more the merrier. Why? Well, every environment is expanding. The attack surface is expanding. We have to know what to secure, and we have to have the ability to secure all of these different platforms. Each platform has its own unique set of instances where it has different vulnerabilities. It has different patching. It has different configurations. Are you seeing the theme continue here? The theme is I have to be concerned about all of my assets, all of the platforms that are running on those assets, and all of the security for those environments. Because I have to have a rock solid security hygiene to be able to withstand the attacks that are coming from all different angles. So what's the CTEM core? We've gathered assets, but what's the core of security that we need to consider? Well, I actually did a little bit of research and came up with a list of pretty much what kind of the industry deems as the set security solutions that anyone would need regardless of the organization size. And if we break this down, you'll see over on the left-hand side, this is kind of endpoint and resource access security, right? It's your EDR and it's your PAM solution and MFA. Over on the right-hand side, I call this post-exploit. This is the fact that something happened and we need to analyze it. We need to determine if something bad went on. So we're detecting things. And if something bad actually happened, we may have to go to our backups and do a disaster recovery. So this is kind of post-exploit. Well, left in the middle is what we have, the core. And this is all security hygiene. This is preventative, right? If we can actually secure our assets to withstand an attack and an exploit, it'll never be exploited. And it will never get into the SOC to be detected and remediated. This is where we need to spend a lot of our effort, right? You wouldn't just rely on a video camera catching someone that broke into your home. You're going to put locks on your doors and windows to prevent them from getting in. This is where that layering comes in. So this is where we call the core. And the core starts with this asset inventory that we've already gathered. Now that we have the assets inventoried, we're going to go into every single one of them and go through this list of security. We need to go through the list of security to make sure that we know exactly what we're looking for. So we're going to start with vulnerability management. Okay? Vulnerability management is still core. I'm not throwing it out. I'm now going to make sure that it's vital in the overall unified view that we have for CTEM. Okay? Now, let's be honest. We all hate vulnerability management patching. But it's a necessity, right? And why do we hate vulnerability management patching? Because things break. But we can now go in and we can include CVSS scores, right? We all know version 4 is out. We can include EPSS, which is the exploitability prediction scoring, right? We can go in and say, has this vulnerability been used in a recent breach? Put all of that into an equation and now get vulnerabilities for all of the different environments, all of the different assets to make sure that we are incorporating them. So with this, we can get feeds from multiple places. NIST is number one, of course, and we can actually now get a much better view just on vulnerabilities and actually up the game on our vulnerabilities. Now, what does that look like? Well, again, I'm going to go back to an environment and kind of show you what this would look like. So I'm just going to focus on vulnerabilities here. And now you can see that my vulnerabilities are listed as a priority. And the information that I just mentioned, right? So I'm going to go into the details of the vulnerability, the EPSS score, the CVSS score. It's incorporated in that priority view. So now I know exactly what I need to do for my vulnerabilities. Now, if you want to drill down into more, you can certainly do that. Let's say I want to focus on vulnerabilities that are on my domain controllers. Boom, I now can do that as well. So with a CTEM solution, you're going to start to be able to dig into the details, but keep in mind, and I'm going to come back to this multiple times, one of the most important things is I have a unified view of all the different issues in a single list that's shuffled together. So imagine I have a vulnerability list. I have a user list of issues. I have patching, I have misconfigurations, and they're all decks of cards. I take all those decks of cards together, shuffle them up, and I end up with a single list of issues for my organization based on the priority of that issue on that asset that I need to tackle. This is the core of CTEM. This is at the very center of what we're focusing on. So now we can now add configuration management. With configuration management, this allows me to go in and say, all right, what's the industry standard? Well, the industry standard is CIS benchmarks. And with these benchmarks, I now can go into every asset, align the asset platform with the benchmark, and now I can make sure that the security standards are being upheld for that asset. Now, this is pretty cool. Let me show you this. So I'm going to go back into the platform and I'm going to show you that I can have a variety of benchmarks. Currently in this platform, I have 93 benchmarks. Everything from Apache down through Apple, Linux, Cisco. Then I get into Microsoft, IIS, SQL, all the different operating systems. They're all here. So once I have the asset inventoried, I query the asset security, and then I make sure that what I query for that asset platform is compared to the benchmark. And if I have issues, you guessed it, those issues now show up here in the master list of issues that the exposure management platform has analyzed, and it's showing me. So in this case, I have vulnerabilities driving my biggest issues, but misconfigurations are right here. To go into a misconfiguration, I can clearly see which assets this configuration applies to. I have details, including remediation for the configuration. It's everything that I need right here. 100%, it's right here. So now what I'm taking is I'm adding the layers onto the exposure management platform for a variety of different security settings. By doing this, I'm giving the organization a view of what they need to secure right now. What is the most important asset and what is the most important security issue for that asset? And I'm organizing that, right? But it doesn't stop there. I also need to include identity. Identity, according to Gartner, is still the top two security considerations that you need to make. It's number two. It was also number two on the most queried concepts and documents from Gartner. So identity is essential. We're going to gather the identities. We're going to make sure that the identities that shouldn't be logging on outside of tier 0 aren't. We're also going to make sure that the critical settings around passwords are set for our credentials. Because when you look back, credential theft is there. So I need to make sure that we do have expiring passwords. I want to make sure that passwords are required. I want to make sure that privileged accounts aren't logging onto workstations. All of this is extremely important. So now what I have, again, if I jump back into the platform, I have the ability to configure what I want to make sure I check for my identities. And that's all right here. When I'm checking all of these critical aspects of identity, yep, you guessed it. When I find something, it shows up on the actual list of the priorities of issues, just interwoven with everything else. So if I have a true unified exposure management platform, every day I come to work, I come into the list to find out, what should I work on today? What should I be focusing on today? And then we're going to add additional components, right? We're going to add cloud security because everyone is concerned about cloud security. And cloud security should include the top cloud environments, Microsoft 365, Azure, Google Cloud, Docker, right? We also need to include patch management. Keep in mind, patch management is totally different than actual vulnerability patching. Patch management is the idea that I have all of these different platforms that may need to be patched. It may not be security. It could be something else that daisy chains into security. So I need to pull from the feeds and analyze per asset and platform. Am I actually making sure that I'm securing the environment? And then finally, we need to include our attack surface management, our external, the ASM, right? Because we need to make sure that what we have facing the internet can't be exploited and then they get in that way. So ASM is also extremely important. So you need to be able to look at, these are domains that I have, these are names that I have. Please tell me if I have any issues with these. So my public facing assets, my assets that are visible from the internet. And the great thing is, this also can be normalized with the priority along with everything else. So in the end, what I am getting is all of these different areas organized, analyzed. I go through the asset inventory. I have issue priority. I have asset priority. As a result, I get a priority list. I can also look at overall organizational health and issue health. And finally, compliance. Well, what would that look like? Well, let's first of all look at the org and issue health. I'm going to come in here and show you that I can see that I'm doing all right. I have a C, right? In school, that wasn't bad. But some of these issues like PII, oh my gosh, I'm almost failing there. Well, what about certain types of assets? What about my domain controllers? Well, oh boy, I'm failing. This is not a good thing. This allows me to see clearly from the top down where I'm succeeding and where I'm failing for all exposure. If I want to look at different compliance reports, it's a click away. And all of the frameworks are here, so you can just click. If I want to look at PCI, click, change that framework, and I get to see exactly where my issues are for the different components of that framework. This is what a true CTEM solution looks like. This is what you get from a true CTEM solution, right? So how do we use this daily? Well, people are going to come in and say, what do I fix today? I can filter and look at different parts, different areas, different labels, and focus on those to make sure that I'm getting a high score for the different issues and the different labels. Over time, I see trends so I can make sure that we're trending in the correct direction. We're improving security. And then with a couple of clicks, you absolutely have compliance right there. So, what does this cost? Well, when you start looking at what the core solutions, which are included in a unified platform, cost, they add up. But when you have a unified CTEM solution, it's all just there. You don't pay for each individual component, you're just paying for the CTEM platform. So you're going to get a major cost reduction. And because it's unified, you actually are going to get more done by saving money. It's kind of strange, but that's what happens. So with a solution like this, it's easy to deploy. You have automatic discovery, automatic analysis. It's really quite powerful what you get when you get a unified CTEM solution. So I'm going to pass this back to Sandeep, and we'll hold off on questions just for a little bit until we hit kind of the end. But I'm going to pass this back to Sandeep so he can invite other guests. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek, for that wonderful presentation. And just as we transition over to Satya, we've been getting some great questions in my private chat here, and more questions about the platform and the tool that Derek just showed too. So please, if you do have a question, we will answer this at the end and go through them. So please type them in the chat box so that we can display them. So let me bring on Satya and continue with our live stream here. Here we go. Satya, the stage is all yours. And you're on mute, Satya.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep, and thanks, Derek. Thank you. Actually, I use the Nanitor tool, and the top squares in the big diamond are very useful, and that has really helped the security experts in prioritizing the piles of work. Great. Hello, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. My name is Satya Dillikar. I'm the cybersecurity practice lead at Quadrant. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Quadrant, who we are, what we do at very high level, and more specifically about cybersecurity capabilities and services. So Quadrant is among the fastest growing technology services company in the Pacific Northwest. We have been in the business for nearly 2 decades. The company was founded by 3 Microsoft alumni who spent many years at Microsoft leading large technology groups. We are a global company headquartered in Redmond, Washington, next to Microsoft campus. We have a large offshore development center in Hyderabad, India. We recently opened a 600-seater delivery center in the city of Warangal, which is in South India. We have nearshore centers in Canada and Mexico and offices in London, UK, Dublin, Ireland, Singapore, and Dubai. As a part of our growth charter, we are expanding into other regions and locations. We serve over 40 global top 100 clients as well as mid-market clients across industries. We have delivered hundreds of large complex engagements over multiple technology stacks for these clients. We are a ISO 27001 certified company. We are also a SOC 2 assessed company. In terms of what we do, we focus mostly on the modern technologies, practices, and services. We help our clients to move their applications or data workloads to the cloud. We have deep expertise in all public cloud platforms, more on Azure and AWS. We build cloud native applications and advise our clients on a multi cloud or a hybrid cloud strategy. Data and analytics are our strongest area of expertise. We excel in end-to-end services like modern data stacks with ELT, data ingestion tools like Azure Data Factory, or Kafka for streaming, or Lakehouse platforms such as Snowflake or Azure Redshift, and data transformation platforms like Databricks and visualization tools like Power BI and Tableau. We also have a strong DevOps practice. We are doing a lot of complex DevOps works for Microsoft and other clients. Hyperautomation consists of increasing the automation of the business processes like production chains, workflows, and marketing processes by introducing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotic process automation. More recently, generative AI has been our fastest growing practice. Over the last 9 to 12 months, we have built few powerful tools using OpenAI, and we are seeing a lot of tractions with many of our existing clients. More importantly, in the context of the today's webinar, uh, I would like to talk about our mature cybersecurity practice, where we are bringing our clients a unique combinations of powerful tools like Nanitor and a comprehensive suite of assessments, remediation, support services to help our clients ward off all sorts of emerging threats such as data threats, application threats, infrastructure threats, and network security threats. We also provide other traditional services such as application development, support, quality engineering, test automation, manual testing, and to a small extent, back office or processes or BPO services. But let me do a quick deep dive into our cybersecurity portfolio. Many of you are attending this webinar today are cybersecurity or information security leaders and experts. You all probably know the complexity of the security landscapes within your respective organizations. To deal with the security of the variety of assets, endpoints, and the information flow across all these components, you need to have a complete set of mature capabilities and expertise over several areas, which is what I'm showing you on this slide here. We considered this to be a core set of capabilities that you need to implement for a reliable and safe security posture in your enterprise. We bring solid skills and expertise on each of these areas, be it penetration testing, vulnerability management, managed detection and response, or identity and access management, or data security, and so on. We cover the entire gamut. The great thing about this space is that while some of the challenges and the threats are emerging every day, we have powerful tools and a highly skilled security experts team available today that can address many of these challenges quickly and reliably. A great example is what you just saw today in the Nanitor's continuous threat exposure management platform. If you look at what it takes to implement a solid security posture, first you need to be able to assess and identify where you have risk in your environment. That is addressing the half of the problem. As you have seen in my previous slide deck, together with the Nanitor continuous threat exposure management platform, we can address that half of the problem as a part of our consulting or advisory services. You should also need to have an overarching security strategy, or you should define your security policies and procedures. Or you should have security organizations with the required skills and expertise. That's where the Quadrant cybersecurity specialist team can step in and help you with these services. The other half of the solution to the problem is implementing the right set of tools, controls, processes, and checks and balances to remediate the risk that has been identified. This is where we make the difference to our clients by directly bringing other relevant tools, our knowledge, our expertise to address this as part of our implementation services. Implementing a set of tools or solutions or processes does not assure you continued or sustained security. You does not. Uh, you need a team of specialists. You need many eyes and ears to watch out for any of kind of threat incidents or anomaly that can occur in your IT landscape. Despite the best controls you may have, or you still need a cybersecurity specialist team to act swiftly and thoroughly to resolve such threat incidents. That's where our run services become relevant to our clients. We provide a complete set of command and control, network monitoring, incident monitoring, and other ongoing services to ensure continued security to your environment. In the summary, we bring end-to-end capabilities and services required to assess the risk, remediate the such risk, and provide ongoing monitoring and security operations center services. Let me give a couple of examples of how we have helped our clients address their security and cybersecurity or information security challenges. This is one of our client is the largest healthcare peer, and they were experiencing a baggage of security threats with improved sophistication average each time. We did a comprehensive analysis and implemented several remediation measures, such as strengthening their perimeter security, adding multi-layer defense, and providing several templates and material for security training. And we also achieved, will help them to achieve a better security posture. Uh, we all in this we've protected their patient records and the medical records, and we help them to get the full compliance with the HIPAA and other regulatory requirements. The next client success story I want to talk is in the financial sector, where we help a digital loyalty wallet service tackle a variety of vulnerabilities in their environment. Not only we enhance the security by running thousands of penetration testings and vulnerability tests, both internally and externally, we also help them to like implement a robust encryption, authentication, and protection policies. We improved the client's trust by preventing any DDoS attacks and ensure high availability of the digital wallet service. To summarize what Quadrant and Nanitor are bringing together, we are offering you an unparalleled end-to-end security solution with a very few key alternatives in the market. Let me unpeel that a little bit. Together, we bring you hundreds of person years of information security, cybersecurity experience. We have seen hundreds of client asset landscapes. We have seen most challenging situations. And we have worked with all kinds of security tools and technologies, and we bring all that experience to you. We are not just a boutique security advisory. We are not just a security provider, or we are security tool provider, or we are not just an operations shop. Together, we bring all these experiences and capabilities, and we are your one-stop security shop. Most importantly, actually, we tell you what should be your top priority should be, and we quickly using the Nanitor continuous threat exposure management platform, and then we can help you to resolve the prioritized issue deliberately, reliably, and cost effectively using our global delivery capabilities. Uh, Note Quadrant is a US headquartered with a large delivery center in India and nearshore centers in Canada and Mexico. Nanitor is a European company with a presence in US, so we can help you across the globe. We take the pride in our ability to deliver what we promise. We take the entire ownership of the end-to-end solutions and services I talked about earlier. We carry out all our services thoroughly till you say it is done. We would like to do this at a price point that you agree is the best in the market, and you find to work with us easy and hassle free. We can work with you in any commercial construct that can outcome based, output based, or fixed cost, or any other. Hope that sounds interesting to you. So by now, I think you have a good perspective of how you can apply the key CTEM principles to strengthen the security of your IT landscape, and how Quadrant and Nanitor can jointly help you to address all your security challenges. We really appreciate you taking this out your time from this your busy schedule to attend this webinar. We want to pay back the favor, and this is how. We are offering everyone who is attending this webinar today a free security assessment. This is something Quadrant and Nanitor are doing jointly. Just scan this QR code or go to the website and fill out a simple form, submit it, and we will get in touch with you to schedule your assessment. It will be a fairly straightforward process. We will be doing a consultation meeting with you, and we'll go through a simple questionnaire, and we will provide you a detailed assessment, a very nice report at the end of it. Again, all this is free, no obligation, no commitment, and you don't need to buy anything from us. And but we are sure that you will definitely like what we deliver. Uh, And as you all know, the bad actors are out there. They're trying hard to get access to your crown jewel assets and resources. Remember, in the world of cybersecurity, staying ahead of the threat is the key, and we just do that. Thank you for your time today. And at this time, I think we are done with the presentation, and I shall hand over to Sandeep. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Satya, for that wonderful presentation. And now we're going to transition into a Q&A session here. So I'm going to bring up Derek as well onto the stage. And again, if you have a question, just type your question into the chat box and it'll be displayed as you see on the screen right now. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes. We have a couple questions here already, but we'll start with those. And then if you have a question, please just enter that into the chat field there. Derek, I think we had a question on earlier, actually. Let me just share that. More information about the tool that you were showing. So let
Sure.
me put that up screen from Mahesh. So
Yeah, let's see. Okay, so the answer to this is we actually don't do traditional scanning, right? We actually put a sensor on the asset. And so we literally have near real-time information about that asset. On the back end, what we're doing is we're getting information from a multitude of feeds, right? Of course, NIST is number one, but we are gathering that information so that when we actually use the sensor to get information from the asset, we compare it to basically what we got that evening of the new vulnerabilities that are around. And that way we can do near real-time scanning. It isn't real-time, but it's pretty dang close, especially compared to a scanner and the traditional vulnerability management. And again, I think this is a perfect example of traditional vulnerability management just isn't up to speed in what we need to be able to do in today's threat landscape.
here's another question we got sent to me privately there.
Let's see. We have a vulnerability management solution as well as an ASM. What does Nanitor provide over these two separate solutions? Excellent. So vulnerability management is one of the critical pillars, as I call them, of CTEM, right? ASM is kind of there in terms of a key pillar, but it's kind of just becoming part of CTEM, right? And I'll be honest, most of the CTEM solutions and platforms don't include ASM. Thank goodness, Nanitor in 1 week will be including ASM. So what we look at from a Nanitor perspective in our platform is vulnerability management, misconfigurations, again, comparing to the CIS benchmarks. We look at patching. We actually download feeds from all the vendors every day because each vendor has a different list of patches, right? And the patch may not be security, so it may not be a CVE, so it's a totally different view. We look at identity, which again, I don't know of very many CTEM platforms that even include identity, but we include identity. And then we also include software and cloud and network devices. All of those concepts are in one location and they're all normalized and prioritized and shuffled together to give you this view. So if you do have like point solutions, that's okay. And that's pretty much all you've had up to this point. But Nanitor blows that out of the water and brings all of that under one umbrella. And it's not some kind of kludge to try to make sure that the priorities and the risks are all trying to compared. It was actually built from the ground up to be an exposure management platform. So it's all right there, and it just works seamlessly. It's pretty amazing. Another great question. So today, well, not today, any day, not everything can support a sensor, right? So those assets that can have a sensor, your Windows devices, your Apple devices, most of your Linux devices, they can have a sensor, right? So that way that sensor is doing the work. Everything else is put into what we call a collector. And the collector has a connection with credentials to each of your other assets, right? Cloud would be one, network devices would be one, printers would be one, databases. And so you either are going to use a connector that's built into Nanitor, such as Azure has a connector, Google Cloud has a connector, or you're just going to use like SSH, right? And you're going to have a secure connection over to that platform and to be able to collect that information. All of this, right, whether it be sensor-based or collector-based, we're collecting information at a pretty good pace because it's just changes. That way we're able to give you pretty good information throughout the day on the security of all of your assets across all of these different security settings. Let's see. We don't include any security benchmarks today. We just manually compare the contents of benchmarks to our systems. Ouch. Boy, that takes some time. So, you saw that inside of Nanitor, I have 93 different benchmarks. I feel sorry for this company that is taking benchmarks and manually comparing it, because there's no way that that's even monthly. There's no way, because there are so many settings in a single benchmark that to try to compare this in any way manually would be exhausting. And I'm sure that they're spending a tremendous amount of overhead on this to try to get this done, which again is why when you have a unified exposure management platform that's taking all of these decks of cards, these security decks of cards, and shuffling them together and analyzing in the background, it's a pretty powerful statement to be able to provide that information to any team that needs to remediate security settings.
That's true. I think this is a very daunting task to compare all the benchmarks. So that's where you need an expert team, security expert, to prioritize, and the tools like CTEMs to prioritize what actually you would like to focus on it.
So there's two parts of vulnerability and patching, right? There's what I call the back end, which is the actual database of all the vulnerabilities that we're looking at and all the patching that we're looking at. Again, patching is per kind of environment or platform. So we pull on the back end daily. So once a day, we pull from all the feeds and put those into Nanitor. Usually on a 4 or 5 hour increment, we're doing the analysis of all of the assets, right? There's no need for vulnerabilities and patching to do this in real time, right? Because it would, first of all, just really hurt the asset to get that much information out to a sensor or a collector. So what we're doing is we're pulling the differences that we see and analyzing on a regular cadence throughout the day, back to what we pulled nightly. So at any time, you may receive an alert, you may receive information from Nanitor saying we have a new issue, or an issue now has been escalated up through the priority list. And that could happen at any time, which is why we also communicate with SOCs. We communicate with other environments that you utilize on a daily basis that you are looking at, and we basically integrate with those. So now it's just additional information coming into your security vision.
Well, great. I think those were all the questions that we had. Let me just do one more quick glance here. Any sent to me privately or in the chat feed. Derek and Satya, thank you. I think that covers it up. Any final thoughts from you guys before we close up?
So I think like security is like you need both the tools and this expert teams to address it. It is not just one of the things. So they're like the big vendors and themselves got breached. I don't have to name all of them, but so that's where it's just a combination of both tools and this expert team.
And the thing that I'll say is I see this kind of trend leaning towards detections and disaster recovery. Not saying they're not important, but you would never in your own home get rid of your locks on doors and windows. Make sure that you have your security hygiene tight. That's exactly where an exposure management platform helps you. It makes sure that if the 2-year-old unlocked a window, you're being told that that window is unlocked. Let the CTEM solution do that heavy lifting for you, so you now can make sure that your security hygiene is in place, and that's what Nanitor helps you do.
Great, great. All right. Well, that brings us to the close of our webinar today. And those of you asking, yes, this was recorded. This live stream was recorded on multiple platforms. So please do check out our Quadrant Technologies page on LinkedIn or Facebook to watch anything you may have missed. And please share this with your network. We can't wait to hear from you. And if you didn't register for the event, please put in your name and contact info and the company you work for in the chat, so that when we reach out to you, we can provide you any relevant information. And then you'll see our email, probably scrolling through the bottom of the page there for Quadrant. So please feel free to contact us at marcoms@quadranttechnologies.com. I would also like to remind you that we are offering a free security assessment. Let me just throw that up on the screen there. And give me 1 second here. Perfect. All right. So feel free to scan the QR code shown on the screen and submit a simple form on our website, and we will get in touch with you as soon as possible. So I welcome all of you to utilize this great opportunity that you've heard about today. Finally, I would like to thank our distinguished speakers, Derek and Satya, for sharing their invaluable insights and expertise with us today. Your presentations have undoubtedly enhanced our understanding of the ever-evolving landscape of information security and cybersecurity. So thanks a lot, Derek and Satya. Those were indeed great presentations from you both. And lastly, I just want to thank all our participants. Thank you for your time, your active engagement, and for your thought-provoking questions, and for your commitment to staying informed about a key cybersecurity topic to protect your respective organizations. Your presence has made this webinar a rewarding experience for us, and hopefully for yourselves as well. We hope to engage with you again soon, but till then, we wish you a happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Sandeep. Happy holidays.